Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Made in New England interview series, where we talk with New England-based businesses and the people who lead them. I'm your host, Steve DeVries, and today I am joined by Tejas Kilkarni, co-founder and CEO of Common Sense Machines, located in Cambridge, Mass. Tejas, welcome to the show.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for inviting me. Very nice to meet you here.
Absolutely. So, Tejas, maybe you could kick us off by telling our audience a little bit about yourself and Common Sense Machines.
Yeah, so founder, CEO of CSM, and what we're building is, think of it as a new superpower. A lot of people who don't know how to do 3D art or create 3D assets, animation worlds. These are very difficult problems, and even for experts, it takes a lot of time. And for a normal person like me, I really don't know how to do this. So we're building AI tools and an app essentially, which will let me do it, and also for people who already know how to do this much faster, much more easier. And I've been in the New England area for quite some time now. I started working on this exact same problem almost a decade ago in 2012. That's when I came here first. I was a PhD student at MIT. Spent several years essentially in the AI lab and the brain and cognitive science lab here, studying how humans might be doing some of these tasks and programming computers to do the same. So, through many years of research, and then, various different places. I was at Google DeepMind after that in London. And then I moved back when we were starting CSM because, uh, I knew a lot of people here, and also a lot of the originations for this problem stem from this same place. And also wanted to work with a lot of my friends who were around. So ended up moving back here in 2020. And then we started CSM, and it's been a few years now, and it's a lot of fun.
So I'm looking at your website, csm.ai, and it says 3D world generation with common sense. So for our listeners that maybe aren't familiar with 3D modeling, could you just explain a little bit more about what it is that CSM is doing?
Yeah. So there are two different types of 3D technologies. One thing that you may have come across is, the last almost 10, 15 years of 3D has been around scanning real world spaces, right? So scanning your apartments, factories, environments, even driverless cars now scan streets, right? So that's been a lot of what 3D scanning and 3D technologies have been about. Also, your phone has 3D cameras. Uh, but really, I think if you look at uh, uh, a lot of where 3D content today gets created, it's actually not the real world stuff. It's actually made from scratch. So when you're making your next Pixar movie, or if you play video games, Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto or any of these large games that are coming now, even when you're creating a new shoe or a bag, it actually is 3D modeled in the design process, right? And also sometimes printed. 3D prints are made during the same time. So uh, in a lot of the design process where things are being made from scratch, either because they haven't been produced yet, or because they're fantasy objects like dragons, right? I think a lot of 3D content is in that category, right? And so that for that problem at the moment, it requires a lot of time. There's a lot of pain points. It's a very long process with multiple teams communicating with each other, coordinating with each other just to solve that task. So what we are trying to do is we're trying to build think of it as like almost like a co-pilot, right? Who can essentially help you in pieces and parts where it's really cumbersome and it's really hard. Or if you're a regular person who also wants to get into more 3D, I think generative models and the kind of product we are building are going to actually be a very good starting point for you to start doing something in 3D. And if you look at the trend of where gaming is going and a lot of content that is being generated, it's actually being generated more and more also by smaller groups of people, right? So there are like hundreds of millions of people on things like Roblox who make digital things and exchange things with each other. The same thing with Fortnite and a lot of these other platforms. But I think and you many people are familiar with YouTube, right? For videos where the creator economy pretty much started there. And I think the same thing is going to happen with 3D for normal consumers over time, where you're going to start seeing TikTok but for gaming, or YouTube but for gaming. So those things will, over long periods of time, will also open up with the kind of technologies that we are building. So we have started kind of for people who are already 3D creators, but we also have a mix of people who actually don't know how to do it and they are trying to learn. And it makes it very easy with having these kind of tools.
So what's driven CSM's success up to this point?
I think a large part of the difficulty of this problem is what we ended up essentially pushing really hard on and pioneering, which is the task of taking a text prompt or a single image, right, or a sketch, which is what a lot of these processes, they start with that type of an input. How do you translate that into a game engine ready content that then can be edited or consumed directly? I think that task is incredibly hard. So I think for us, focusing on trying to get the capability up and running, and then having a very simple to use product layer, which will make it very easy for people to interact with these models and machine learning models, and actually fit it in their existing workflows or new workflows that are emerging. So there's a new UX that is being built as well for the interaction layer. So this combination of building good models and the right UX is what makes what makes I think CSM be uniquely positioned to make an impact here right now.
So it's an easy to use tool and it's getting
Very easy.
easier all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And also the other thing is that the underlying capabilities are not solved. So they're being solved as we speak, right? So there is uh, all the aspects of this problem are moving quite rapidly, right? So you have this really nice dynamics of new capabilities plus a new UI layer that's emerging to work with those capabilities.
Sounds great. And so I want to talk a little bit about the business itself, you and operating the business. In this type of industry, what types of metrics do you use in order to ensure that CSM is operating and successful in a way that you had imagined?
I think the first phase is to get the capabilities to be at a certain level of performance, because there are basically workflow requirements that your things just have to align with the types of tools that people use. And when you're building a new capability, you have to look at technical metrics, right? So how good are you on low poly assets for humans to take it and edit it, things like this. So I think there are metrics around that. And then I think for us, it's a bottoms up led motion. So what that means is we have a product. There's a free version of the product. Anyone can go and sign up and use it. And we've had hundreds of thousands of people just show up and organically kind of sign up, right? And people find about us in all sorts of ways. Twitter, Discord, LinkedIn, and other channels. So you show up there and then you start using it. And once you basically see how it is and what it can do, what it cannot do, I think it's still early days. I think there are a lot of rough edges there, but you can get started. And then once you do figure out, most of the things in the product right now are free, but there are some premium features as well. So then you can sign up for more of the paid accounts, and then kind of transition from there. And then so in terms of raw bottoms up, so the business model for us is a prosumer product-led growth style motion, right? Where you have these individuals that come up to your product. That also gives us a lot of feedback cycles and feedback loops to guide the technology development to be better. And then it also gives us a lot of feedback for training machine learning models itself.
Okay.
So the product almost becomes like a flywheel for more data that is more relevant for making the models better. So you kind of have this virtuous loop that we're trying to set up. And as that is going on more and more and more, you just kind of do a bottoms up motion, similar to how Slack or Figma or Canva. I think if you're familiar with those companies, that's kind of like one way to think about this.
Okay. Okay. So your metrics are very technically oriented at this point. So that makes sense for a company such as yours. So when you think about the future of your business, what excites you most?
I think you want to have a product that has very high retention and low churn. I mean, that's what we want to do now. So that's basically at the lowest level of metrics, and I think I'll now jump to like what's most exciting. So for us, that is the biggest metric because everything else flows from there, right? Is that's what we're optimizing most of the time, and you want to have like a non-leaky funnel, right? At all levels. So that's really the key thing that you have to do from first principles. And then I think what is exciting is um, this capability is not solved at all, right? Fully in its full capacity. So what will happen when this gets to human level performance? I think a lot of things that we don't predict will happen. Things like if anyone can be uh, if anyone like a group of people that were um 15 20 people studio or something, or a group of 5 people, if they can produce something at the level of Disney, I think that's interesting. So that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about, can you create like new opportunities for small groups of people to go against like the big guys. I think that's the most exciting thing that will come out of this.
I love that. So you don't necessarily, if you have all of these creative ideas and you just need tools that in the
Yeah,
past were only available to the bigger guys like a
yeah,
Disney,
yeah,
then this will enable that.
yeah. I think so. And even Disney will be able to become like an ultra kind of alien level intelligence. So I think there's room. There's a the ceiling grows for everyone, I think. But I think I'm more excited about like what will happen to 5 people who today when people create YouTube videos and suddenly they have an income. It's kind of interesting to think about. Can we create a new technology that will create that level of new opportunities for creation, and then there are already a lot of consumers, so there's a market for this. So like so many people like playing games and watching animated things, and so I think there's a pretty big demand for that.
Do you see this as being something, a tool that will allow you to create more digital content or a tool that will enable more, say, physical creation and 3D printing of physical models? What do you think you're going to go in one direction or another more prevalently?
I think we'll definitely, we started with digital first, but now we are seeing a lot of printing applications also. So I think over time it will be both, for sure. And as the models become more and more accurate, you'll start seeing more physical kind of accuracy. The accuracy will be good enough. They will be more editable. So I think over long periods of time, they become the same thing more or less. Um,
Nice.
so yeah, it's a question of timing.
So yeah, so I think about myself, right? And I'm
Yeah,
working around the house, I'm working around the yard, and something breaks, and
yeah,
I need a new part, right? And if I could just take a picture of the old part and use a tool to help me
that's
print
true.
a new part, right? That's where my head goes, right?
Yeah,
But my son, who is playing most of those games that you described, I could see him using it in a completely different way, right? To be more in that digital space. So I find it interesting that the tool can enable both.
yeah, yeah, I think so. I think that's kind of what makes it very interesting, is that uh, it can speak to like multiple different workflows. And I mean, because 3D is so, I mean, it is on a computer screen, but also everything around you is manufactured. It's a 3D manufactured object. So I think it has a pretty wide application area for sure.
Nice. Well, so if you think about your business, right? And if I handed you the magic wand and allowed you to change one thing or do one thing in your business or industry, what would that be?
I think if we can get to like AAA level performance on the technology, um, that would be like the magic moment. Like, because then at that point, there's a lot of things on top that you can build, but I think everything will just accelerate like quite dramatically, like on all aspects. So I would say, yeah, having a capability unlock at that level is probably the biggest magic.
Okay. And so your business is located in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So you're a New England-based company. How does being here in New England or Cambridge specifically impact your business, pros or cons?
I think the pros are that it's less crowded, I think, than let's say the Bay Area or something. There's like more headspace to work on long-term things, longer-term things. There's a bit more of a deep tech presence, or thinking at least, I think that you can have. So I think the ability to create your own culture and work on longer-term things is much better here. I think in terms of and also there's a lot of smart people, I think, in around here. So I think that it has the right kind of mix of things to build a company like ours, I feel. The the negative is just that, the number of startups that, something like the Bay Area has is much higher. So the rate at which things happen there is much higher, but then there can also be more noise, right? So but I would say that is a con of being here, is that you don't have that kind of same level of intensity, but I think it's probably for the better sometimes.
Interesting. So for startups, would you say that the ecosystem, it maybe there's more for startups in the Bay Area, but there's also more competition? Is that what I'm hearing?
There is more. I think there is more. I think it's harder to get started here, but once you have started, I think it's easier to grow. Uh, I think it's easier to get started there, but then maybe it's a bit more difficult to grow in the same way. So I think there is that's like the trade-off, I would say.
Okay. So last question, Tejas. Any advice for budding business leaders of tech companies here in New England? What comes to mind?
I think I would really love to see more AI companies start here. I think there are some really cool ones being started. Um, I think it's kind of like, in the grand scheme of thing, it's the early days of AI, right? So I think more entrepreneurs here should just like take a leap of faith, and not worry too much about, like, the hype and where things will go. There's like enough real things happening where if you wait long enough for things to settle down, then it's too late. So I think when there's so I would encourage people more to kind of not linearly think in the same ways that people thought when starting software companies. I think the dynamics of deep learning, post deep learning era company is very different. I would open my minds to that for sure, because everything is going to be that in computer science. So we're starting even in I mean, we are doing 3D printing now, right? I think, and no matter what you do, I think these generative models and AI is going to be there. It's going to be like one of the main things that will drive progress over the next few years. So I would think about all sorts of different companies and start them and not think too much.
Nice. So thank you so much for joining us today, everybody. Our guest today has been Tejas Kilkarni of Common Sense Machines. Tejas, it's been a pleasure getting to know you and hearing all about your business.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot, Steve. Very, very cool set of questions, and thanks for inviting me.
All right, absolutely. And thanks to everybody out there for watching and listening. We'll be back with another episode very soon. Have a great day, everybody.